But just because a scene is beautiful doesn't mean it gets to stay. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tara East. I'm a writer, blogger, YouTuber, and the author of the mystery novel Every Time He Dies. In this week's video, I want to talk about what you need to do during your second draft. So first drafts are all about getting the story down. Maybe you are working from an outline, or you could just be writing intuitively. But either way, you are transforming the blank Word document in front of you into a book-like thing. As you already know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm really not precious about first drafts. During the first draft, I really don't put any effort into making the writing good, the descriptions polished, or for my language to be poetic. For me, a first draft is one version of the story, and more often than not, it's not even the right version of the story. I once heard Holly Black say in an interview that whenever she's writing a story, she has to write it the wrong way before she can write it the right way. And this is really what the purpose of a first draft is. Also, I've heard Leigh Bardugo say that you cannot outsmart the first draft. A comment that is both liberating and kind of heartbreaking. First drafts aren't about good writing, at least that's not what they are for me. First drafts are really just about story. What I've noticed in my own first drafts is as I'm writing the draft, the work usually improves the further into the story I get. Drafting is really about making decisions and then responding to those decisions. This is how you move forward with the story. And as you move forward into that story, there is at least some level of clarity about where the story is heading and who these characters are. As you continue to work on the story, you often generate more ideas, or at least more interesting ideas than maybe the ones you came up with during the outlining or planning stage. After you've completed your first draft, you'll likely realize that the story has taken a shape that you're not particularly happy with, and that is what second drafts are for. Second drafts are where you look at the book as a whole and reflect on important questions about structure, plot, setting, and characterization. You get to ask yourself whether the story has everything that it needs and whether the events are actually in the right place in the story. One quick trick is to create an outline of the entire draft you've already written and summarize each scene as a sentence. Then you have, at a glance, a mini outline of the entire book, and it's very easy to then adjust, move around, or play with the structure of the story. Now, this is important. Second drafts, like first drafts, are not concerned with good writing. In fact, spending too much time polishing your scenes on the line level can actually be a disservice to the story because it might make it harder for you to cut a scene later down the line when you realize it doesn't actually work. You may be resistant to cutting that scene because you've put so much effort into making it beautiful. But just because a scene is beautiful doesn't mean it gets to stay. Second drafts are still very much a work in progress, and during this stage, you really should be looking at the big and little building blocks that really make up the narrative. Are these blocks well built? Are they flimsy? Or is something missing? Now that's the hard one because nobody can help you figure that out. So, when do you start to worry about perfecting your prose? The short answer? When you've built a story structure and a plot that you're happy with. When all the pieces are in the right place, that's when you can start to worry about it. The even shorter answer? You'll know. We spend a lot of time talking about first drafts and even zero drafts, and maybe that's because so many hobby writers never really get beyond that stage, or they never even complete that stage. We often put a lot of effort into the preparation stage before we even begin writing our first draft. But it's also worth pausing and coming up with a plan for how to best approach the writing of your second draft. And in fact, I would say it is more important to create a plan before you write your second draft than it is to create a plan before your first draft. Ask yourself what you hope to achieve within this space of the second draft, and be really realistic about how much happens, how much work happens between the first draft and the second draft. Because it takes a lot of work to really fix all of those problems that exist in the first draft, which is another reason why you do not want to complicate things further by editing your work at the sentence level. Only spend time making your story sing once you're happy that all the building blocks are in the right place and that the story is working the way you want it to. Now I'd love to hear from you. How do you approach the second draft process? Do you focus on structure? Do you focus on editing it at the line level, or do you have a different approach? Do you maybe not think or strategize about your editing that much? You just sort of go in and start fixing things willy-nilly. I'd love to hear, so please leave a comment below and tell me all about it. Now, if you'd like even more writing advice, of course, there is a bunch of other videos on this channel, or you can go to taraeast.com and dive into the archives. While you're there, please consider joining my email newsletter, because when you do, I'll send you a free gift called the Follow Through Formula, how to complete a long-term writing project. You'll also receive a newsletter in your inbox every single Thursday morning, including links to that week's blog and video, a short note by me, a quote of the week, some resources I've recently loved and think you will too, as well as some other tidbits that I only really share via email. Thank you so much for being here again this week. I really appreciate it. Now stay safe, stay calm, and keep writing, because the world actually does need more books.